Hey everyone, this is Martin. It has been a while since I did the last video, so wanted to catch up, give some progress, tell you where I'm up to, and just share. So those of you who don't know, this is a C++ FPS game engine / game that I've been working on, basically from a Udemy course that I've now finished, and now I'm doing the extra bits myself and figuring it out. So that's the big thing. First off, Udemy course finished, fantastic, really great course. Gave me the foundations to build upon to actually create an FPS game in C++ and OpenGL. So I highly recommend it. The link is in the description if you want to check it out. But let's just show you first what I've got going on here, so you got a little bit of a visual reference first. I think it's been, I don't know, 3 weeks since my last video. It's been busy at work and home, so I've not gotten around to this, and it's now like 11:30 at night, and I'm just finding the energy to do something. And basically committed, just before starting this video, committed what I was committed into GitHub, what I'd done so far. But here's the main menu scene. So the big thing is, the big goal, the big task of this last couple of weeks was to do multiple scene loading. So that is loading the menu scene as a separate scene and loading the level, the main level, as a separate scene, and that's been achieved. So here you can see this is a main menu scene with nothing 3D in there. There's no 3D world, as you've seen in other videos. If I click on play, you look on the left here, we've unloaded the scene, the destructor has been called, main menu component destructor is called, and now we are calling the loading scene, scenes / level.sc. Level.sc is the foundation level, the holder level for all levels, you know, for each map, whatever you want to call it. The structure is to be figured out. I'm still working all that out, but there you go. This is what you might have seen in a couple of last videos, so it's the same thing, it's the same level, it's just now loaded second to the menu when I click on that play button. If I go in, the other thing is as well is I can switch back, so I click on escape, I can click on continue there, so sorry about that's the recording software on the right side there. If I go escape again, I can go back to the main menu, and there we've got the constructor called, for the main menu, so main menu destructor called, main level component destructor called, loading scene, scene constructor called, etc. So I've got, the other thing is I've added a bunch of logging, so I'll show you that in a moment, and then again I can go back in and click play, and I can start the level again. There is a memory leak. That is my next task. This memory climbs and climbs as I load the scenes. So I've got to go in there, see what is getting constructed on the heap, and where is it not getting deleted, where is that memory not getting freed up when we load the second scene. Also, when we load to the next scene, whether that's into the menu or into the level. So that's my next big task. And then after that, I think I've got like event system on my mind as well. This is taking a while to load. I don't know if I've caused an issue or a crash, or maybe I've made some edits which have caused problems. See set scene down here, maybe I've caused a problem there when I edited something earlier. Because what I was doing just before this video, I was like committing, I don't know, maybe it's a timing issue. Because we got into the scene then, didn't we? We went from the menu into the level. What I've found is that with Visual Studio, sometimes between plays, I'm getting some behavior slightly different. This did happen last week where it just wouldn't load the main menu. I stopped the application within Visual Studio and then I started it again and it worked, which was very odd. I don't know why that would be the case. Possibly a timing issue, but this is very kind of single-threaded, so I wouldn't expect any difference between runs. But you can see here already, like, this is taking way longer, so I don't know if it's, again, something in Visual Studio or something that I'm not doing. So any ideas, anyone, please let me know. Again, if I just stop this, try it again. So this stream, I'm not streaming right now. This recording is completely derailed with this, but hey, you get to see the real life woes and you know, blood, sweat, and tears that goes into making a game partly, or trying to figure out how to build things from scratch in C++. So there they go, work that time. But let's take a look at what we've got. We've got set scene. We're finished loading the scene, so I'll move this over here a little bit. Engine.pp, we set the scene, and then engine.pp run is called. That's fine. If I click on play, there you go. You see, it's not happening for some reason. That was working before. That is very, very odd. So I don't know if something is sticking around in memory somewhere, but why would that be in Visual Studio? But we saw it at the start of the video. That's very, very odd. I'm going to have to figure that out. So, let me come back to that. I'll have to figure this out. Give me a second, everyone. Hey everyone, I'm back. Sorry about that. There was probably a bit of a pause there. The missus was calling me for some help with something, and I restarted Visual Studio in the background. So we're keeping it raw. No editing, just a pause. So you can see in Visual Studio here, I've gotten past the set scene part, and then we're destroying the main menu component and then calling the constructor. Main menu component constructor called, main level component constructor called, so that's fine. So there's something very wacky going on. I wonder if it's maybe a misspelling, but why would it work before but not now? I'm going to come back. Give me a second. Back again all. So I restarted Visual Studio, and I also did a rebuild of the project. This is the first time loading into the level. So let's just see if this works. Continue works. Back to menu. Let me just shift this over here. We see on the left side here in the log, like scene, main menu scene is finished loading. Let's click on play again. And it might just take a moment. I don't know. This did work the other day. It has worked. It could be perhaps an edit that I've made when I did the commit, because no, there you go, it worked. So if anyone out there in the world knows why that might be the case with Visual Studio, or I don't know, that's a very odd one, that, or maybe something to do with the build files, maybe for CMake, that's causing some issues. I can't even get the mouse over here now. It's completely okay. Anyway, you get the point. Scene loading and reloading works. I think it might have been a memory issue. Maybe I'm just going too high because it's not cleaning up. Possibly. Anyway, this video is derailed with that, but whatever. This is just a devlog. It's just me talking about what I'm doing, and not a tutorial or anything like that. Just sharing and keeping it raw. So let's take a look at source tree anyway, and just give you an overview of what I've changed to make this happen. Maybe I'll preface this with probably a lot of this stuff is incorrect the way that I'm doing it, and I'm going to learn as I go. It's kind of the point, really. But big sort of changes here. We've got scene files, so we've got a main menu scene and a level scene now. So main menu scene is what you saw first. The level scene, the kind of idea that I've got is that the level scene will contain all of the geometry here, like you got the 3D root. So this is what was in there before. The big change, I suppose, from each of these is that I've created a game object called scripts, and I'm putting my new main level component on there. Let's start with the main menu one, actually, just because that's kind of first in chronological order in the game. But again, we've got just like the canvas objects in the world here. And if I go down, where is it now? Components might not be large enough to display in there. Maybe let's just take a look at the main menu. Why is that not showing there? Oh, it might be, again, it might be just because it's a bit too large. You see, it's all the way down there. But anyway, I've added a game object, just a normal entity that lives in the world, and a component on it called main menu component. Now this is where I've kind of taken from the Unity approach of how I would build a game in Unity. If I had a main menu scene in Unity, ignoring a splash screen, let's say that you double click on the exe, you launch the app. First thing it does is come into the main menu. What I've often done with some smaller games is I've just made a scripts folder and put on the component that handles that scene, and in this case it's the main menu component. Now the cool thing is, maybe I'm skipping ahead and dotting around here, whatever, but this is like, well, this derives from component first of all, which is part of the engine that the component engine system that we set up, like when I was following the Udemy course. But this extends from component, and I've got a constructor and a destructor there. But the big kind of change that I had to implement, or wanted to implement to kind of make this cleaner, was an OnSceneFullyLoaded callback. So like it says, when the scene is fully loaded, this gets called. This is basically the awake call, the awake callback within Unity. I don't think you'd call it the start one. I think awake is when everything has been loaded and awake can be used to find anything in the scene. So in awake, what I've done is kind of similar to how I'd sort of do it in Unity. Now just ignoring the constructors and destructors there. But on OnSceneFullyLoaded, when awake is called on this component, so you can imagine you've got a scripts component in the editor on the right hand side or left side or whatever in Unity. Underneath and on that scripts component, on that scripts game object, you've got this main menu component. From there, calling setup scene, and what I'm doing is enabling the UI input system, finding the child by play button. Finding the canvas component and the child called the play button, kind of similar to get children or find children, I think is the Unity command, the Unity function, and then add in some callbacks to say, hey, you need to close the application or you need to load the scene, whatever it may be, and then just setting a clear color at the bottom there as well. This was all stripped out of this game.cpp file. So this was the original games.cpp file that had all of this initial kind of setup. So loading the scene. I am still loading the scene here, but that's just the one thing that it kind of does in the beginning when init's called. I was doing setup scene here. I think that was called something else initially, but you can see all of this here was what I just showed you in that main menu there. So, well, this whole create the camera, that was an older thing. It's still and it pumps the update loop as well. So update is called from engine, and then the engine gets scene. Update basically calls on down to all the game objects and then down to all of the components, and so that's where this gets called as well. I think it's here. Oh no, I'm not using update here. I'm using update in. Let me find it. The main level component here. So if I just go in here, there you go. Update's called there. But this is a similar thing. Just while I'm on this script, is basically main level component lives on the level.sc scene file here. So there you go. Again, another scripts game object component and main level component. So the reason why I wanted to kind of make this more handled within the levels themselves is that it gives, in my mind, a little bit more of a separation of concerns. So instead of game.cpp here handling like scene loading, this might be clear in a moment. So if I in game.cpp, this is like a global one that gets called, and game.cpp derives from application, I think. Yeah, so it's just the main game, the main application class instance that gets created. I don't want this to handle scene loading and scene specific stuff. It registers the components, but if I call init here once, and I then have to do find game object, button, on click callback, or if I have to do like update down here for like, hey, if I click the escape key, where's updates? Update here. That's not that's going to be very ugly if I have to do it here per scene. I'd have to do update if scene equals level.sc, or if GameEngine.loaded scene equals level.scene, then do this logic. If the level is the main menu, then do this logic, and that's just horrible. And it's the same thing for initialize as well. Let's say in this game.cpp we've got an initialization here, but we want to call initialize for each scene. You know, when this scene loads, it calls its initialization. When the next scene loads, that calls its initialization. How would we do this with like a global or kind of application class instance? It'd be very difficult. You know, you'd have to call back into init again, or maybe have a callback here for like on new scene loaded, and then you'd have to do if scene equals menu, find these buttons, else if scene equals level, do these buttons. So, blah, 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 whatever. The main thing that I've tried to do here is, again, as I just said before, is bring it into the components that just live on the scene. As I showed before, like these components just live on a script object in each of the scenes. So when this game.cpp runs, all it's doing is registering the custom components that I've created, so that the engine knows how to create those components when they are found within the scene file. So main level component, game.cpp, main level component, register. That's all that is there for. All it does is initialize the setup, which is setting the scene. Hey, this is the first scene. And then all it's doing as well is pumping the update loop, which again calls down into all of the where is it here? Calls down into all of the game objects within the scene, and then the scene game objects call down to their children, call down into their components, etc., etc., etc. So that was the big change, or one of the big changes. So I'll go into scene.cpp because this one's probably kind of relevant, and I don't want to throw too many things. Not that this is a tutorial or anything, but what I'm doing here on scene.load is the callback. This is all the same as before. This is from the Udemy course that I followed. Where is it now? Okay, instance, finding the component. There we go. On OnSceneFullyLoaded. There we go. So at the end of everything, we're using OnSceneFullyLoaded. There was one down here, which was when we load the individual object. Let's say it's the scripts object, and that script object has the main menu component on it, like I just showed you up here. There is like an init call, I think, right at the bottom. It sets the position, the rotation scale based on the information that's in the scene file, and then I'm pretty sure there's there you go, game object.init. So this is for this game object that we've just loaded, we call init here or initialize. Should be able to go to definition, I think. Sorry, not game.h, I'm looking for game object.h, sorry, wrong one. Yeah, this is a virtual, so it gets overloaded in any of the derived classes, but we can call init here. However, not all game objects were loaded at this point, so that's why I had to add this OnSceneFullyLoaded so that I can find game objects, which I was going to call this awake, but then I thought awake doesn't really make a lot of sense in my mind. I mean, I know what it is because I use Unity, but I just wanted to be very explicit. The scene is fully loaded, everything's there, everything's set up. Now you can start to find game objects. You know, you can here we're calling like OnSceneFullyLoaded on all of the components on this game object. So this would call the main menu.cpp OnSceneFullyLoaded. And then what it does is it goes down all of its children, its game object children, and then calls OnSceneFullyLoaded on them, which again would call it back into this recursively, and then call OnSceneFullyLoaded on all of its components as well. So I don't know about this, to be honest. This is a live children begin. This is part of what I just copied from down here. If something isn't alive, as in it's been set for destruction, then we don't want to call OnSceneFullyLoaded on that. I'm not sure. We'll see. There are going to be cases where within the scene file we might not want everything active in the beginning. We might have a set active equals false, and therefore we don't want to call awake on that. Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. To be decided. But that was the other big thing anyway. The other one that I've added as well, and I need to improve this. I need to go back and this is going to be part of my next task, but is to do scene unload. Where are you now? Unload. There we go. I just threw this in real quick. So if it's a scene.reset, which is the pointer, and then I think there was some clear called somewhere. I can't remember where, but this is all I'm doing is scene.reset here. However, that isn't calling all of the destructors on all of the objects that were generated. So what I'm probably going to do is, there's a really good video by a YouTuber called the Cherno, excellent C++ game engine channel, highly recommend him. And one of the cool tricks that I saw him do was you can overload the new keyword and the delete keyword to see, so that you can trace where things happened and where things got newed up and put onto the heap, and where things got deleted. So if they don't match and you're missing something, then you can know, oh, I created this class instance on the heap, but it never got cleared up, and here's where. So that's going to be my next thing. The other thing is, I learned a little bit more, and it semi kind of clicked, was like unique pointers over shared pointers. So this was part of the problem that I had to figure out and kind of Google around a little bit and try to understand, was this unique pointer versus shared pointer. Now I had an idea of what this was. I could tell you what it was, but I didn't really get hands-on with it until I had to do this, because we were creating a shared pointer initially and then returning that shared pointer. Now the problem was, when I was doing scene.load, as in the next one, and I was trying to do reset on the scene, which I think is up here, set scene, I think there's a reset scene maybe, oh, set scene, I might be get scene, and then I might be removing this one. I've forgotten. The problem was that there was because current scene was a shared pointer, it still had a reference, and therefore the scene destructor was not getting called. So that was sort of like my first go-to, was like put in the destructor, put in this log to see if it's ever getting destroyed, and it wasn't. And that's when I went down the sort of I guess a little bit of a rabbit hole for me, was okay, shared versus unique pointers. So now going with the unique pointer route, as in there's only ever one pointer to the scene on the heap. That only lives in one place, it's not shared, and it's always in the engine.cpp, I think. Yeah, current scene, if I go to the definition here, yeah, unique pointer there, and it's originally shared pointer. Allows scene switching without ownership conflicts. Now, maybe there's probably a different way from the author of the course, like how they would do it, because of this. I'm new to this, like low-level sort of C++ game engine architecture, but it worked for me anyway. It works, and I'll build up on that, and I'll see what he does in his next course to maybe allow multiple scene loading. Anyway, that's that point. Let me just go back, because there was something I was going to mention, and I will stop this video soon because it is late and I don't want to ramble on too much in these. Oh, the debug log stuff here. Now this is a macro that I've added, which was logging instead of using cout all the time and having to put in what is it, the IO stream, I think, the namespace. Anyway, if I go to, can I go to this one? Go to document view, I can go there. There you go, yeah. So yeah, instead of putting IO stream everywhere, I've just created a core debug log H. Everyone, everywhere, you know, your grandma and a cat needs a debug log file of some sort. So this is what I put together. This was a little bit kind of strung together by like me grabbing stuff from the internet, getting some suggestions from ChatGPT and seeing what is the best way to do this. But basically, if debug is defined, then we've got this debug log macro. If it's not, then we just don't call it. So that's where this, if it's a release, basically not a debug, or if it's a distribution build. But what we're doing is just grabbing the file name, macro, the line number, and the function called. And I always find this kind of handy to see this within a log. And then any arguments that are passed in as well. I also added a trace one. It's basically the same as debug, but you don't have to pass in any kind of argument. You just slap in trace at the beginning of a function somewhere. I can't find one now, and then it'll trace that for you. I might add in as a next thing as well is some timing around these maybe, or if I add in a trace to the beginning of a function, then I can trace how long that function takes. I don't know if I'll make it part of this trace or I might make it part of a timer macro. Again, the channel did a fantastic video on this called something along the lines of measuring or profiling your app, something like that. But he gave a really, really good example of how you can add basically just a timer macro that can be put at the start of the function, and when the function exits, it basically, that macro, it might have been a macro, goes out of scope, the timer goes out of scope, and then that calls the destructor on the timer, and then that stops the clock, and then you output the time that the function took. So I think that'll be useful, but first thing first is this memory thing, so that has to be fixed. Is there anything big that I wanted to talk about just briefly before I pass out for the evening? I don't think there is. I think those are really the main kind of things. Unique pointer for the scene, so there's only ever one. Probably could have done it with shared pointer, but I don't know enough how to do that right now, and this just kind of worked. I'll probably figure it out, and as I get more and more familiar with this, because this guys is, I was saying this to a colleague the other day, and this is so true. Doing the course was great. I learned a lot. C++, OpenGL, and just engine architecture, really cool. Some of it I was like, okay, I'm not quite understanding this. I'll do a little bit of research. I'll do a reread. I won't just skip along at 100 miles an hour, and I'll understand. Okay, it sort of fell into place. But until you actually are doing it yourself and putting your finger to keyboard, that you really don't know. You really don't know it fully, and even now I don't. To say it another way, when I started now I've started working on this project with my own code, and I'm having to figure things out. It's 10 times harder in a good way, though. It's a good challenge. I like that. I really do. It's okay. How the heck do I get scenes to load? I was like, I'm not sure. Okay, I will figure it out, and I'll see if I can get this pointer to hold on to the next scene, and I call load. Then I had to restructure this game.cpp so it wasn't all loading from within here, and it was in the scenes themselves that were handling their own loading, and so that's why I had this OnSceneFullyLoaded that I had to figure out, how to do the awake callback. So I had to dig into this again, the scenes.cpp load method, wherever it was, in order to get that awake callback. But this one as well, the unique pointer thing, that was kind of my initial dive into this task of getting multiple scene loading, and so that really pushes you. You have to do finger to keyboard. I guess the advice I would say for anyone who's maybe a little bit new to this, or maybe even more seasoned, is don't be a tutorial junkie. Now, I wasn't a tutorial junkie with this. My whole intention was to go through the Udemy course, finish it, and then start to build upon what I had as that foundation. And that's where it's really started to push my knowledge, and I'm scratching my head and sort of semi-banging my head against the wall at times. And then at the end of it, you come through and you get a little dopamine rush of, I figured this out. So anyway, it's fun. Cool. Anyway, I'm gonna go now, guys. I'll bring up. I'll do another video soon around this memory leak thing. I've got that on my radar next. The one after that is probably going to be an event system. I'm going to need an event system. Just case in point here, like this one here, on scene fully loaded on each of these objects. Not ideal. I'd rather just do it as an event. That's hey event system dot scene fully loaded, and then we can hook up to those events. Another one would be on the main game. Is it down here? Yeah, I've even made it like a to-do here as well. Like ideally, should be a callback from the input event system, not polling. So I've got to figure that out as well. So there's a few things there, and I think I might have made a to-do in there as well. In fact, to-do. There you go. This should be an event instead of calling game objects directly. So all coming anyway. Time for bed, passing out, and I'll catch you guys later.